So we've been following Luke the past few weeks, and these readings that we've been following have just been full of questions. Like, who is my neighbor? How do I know that I'm on the right path? How do I know who God is? And don't you care how busy I am or how hard I'm working? Out of these questions come wisdom and a source of a lot of teachings and thoughts and considerations that we use in our own lives. And they, of course, often reflect our own questions that we have. Because when it comes right down to it, I think most of our questions are really about the purpose and meaning for our lives. In my time here, I have had countless people come into my office to ask questions. And on a few occasions, those questions might be about some theological concepts of heaven and hell. But I would say 99.9% of the time, the questions are about the depth and breadth and meaning of life. They are questions about how to cope with the problems that feel insurmountable, or dealing with the challenge or living with the consequences of past mistakes and behaviors. They have been about direction and purpose of life in recovery. Maybe about life after a divorce or having been betrayed or been the one who has done the betraying, and how to let go of that deep shame that they feel. They are questions about being a creative spiritual being and finding hope when it feels like hope is lost. And most of us would probably agree that when we are asking the questions about life and how we are going to live our lives, that meaning that we are seeking is not in what we own or what we have stored up. It's not about our possessions, but it's about the meaning of our lives and what our lives really do consist of. I can think of 1,000 things that bring meaning to life, moments in which we find our best selves and live in harmony with the world around us. And I can think of a good number of people who manage to do that, to live hopeful and spiritually grounded lives. And I think that there are some characteristics that we see in those people. I think one of those characteristics is people who have found peace with their spiritual journey. Somehow, in somewhere in their lives, they have made a connection to the God of their understanding. They have made a connection that there is a power greater than themselves, and they understand that that power greater than themselves is at work. In our reading this morning, we can wonder why the rich farmer has been called a fool. Because on one side, you could easily argue that he is a wise and responsible person. He has a thriving business. His land has produced so abundantly that he does not have enough space to store any more in his barns. So he plans to pull down the barns and build bigger ones to store all of his grains and his goods. And then he will have ample savings set aside for the future and will be all set to enjoy his golden years. So isn't this what we're being encouraged to do? Isn't this what we're told to plan and prepare for? To make sure that we're planning for our retirement, pay down our debt, and make those smart financial decisions. The rich farmer would probably be a great financial advisor for any one of us here. He seems to have those things figured out. He has worked hard and saved wisely. So why is he being called a fool? Well, the rich farmer isn't a fool because he is wealthy or because he has saved for the future, but it's because he seems to live only for himself, and because he believes that he can secure his life with his abundant possessions. When the rich man talks in this parable, he talks only to himself, and the only person he refers to is himself. He uses the language that, what should I do? For I have no place to store my crops. I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones. I will store all my grains and my goods, and I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods for many years. So relax, eat, drink, and be merry. The rich man's land has produced abundantly, and yet we don't hear any gratitude in his statement. There isn't gratitude to God. There isn't gratitude for the workers who have been the ones who have been out there planting and harvesting this bumper crop. He has more grain and goods in storage than he could ever hope to use, and yet we don't hear anything about him wanting to share it with others. No thought of where God might fit into his life. It's easy to succumb to vanity, especially when we are receiving compliments, when we are receiving those good things. And it's to our ego, it's our ego that tells us that what we have accomplished on our own. Or that what I do only affects me, and so I can live however I want. But the reality is that this type of thinking often leads to emptiness. Most of us in this room know that self-centeredness is a pretty lonely place to be. Ego-driven and self-centered lives leave people feeling that we never have enough. Addiction, whether it's to alcohol and drugs, work, food, exercise, you name it, leaves that feeling that it's never enough. There's never enough to satisfy. So we've got to keep using more and more and more. The Wall Street Journal did an article on a research survey from the World Health Organization, and that it indicated that we in this country are the most depressed people in the world. And in our spirituality group on Tuesday, we watched a TED Talk by Brene Brown where she had shared that we are the most in-debt, obese, addicted, and medicated adult cohort in U.S. history. Does that surprise anyone? No. Most of us in this room would probably say no. Our numbers far surpass those in developed countries, and some of the underdeveloped countries are far, far less depressed or have anxiety disorders than we do. Does that surprise anyone? Nope. Our wealth isn't the answer. Our possessions, they're not the answer. What soothes this emptiness and what helps us to put ego in its rightful place is connection. It's connection to God, to self, and with others. And we find that connection by being in relationship, learning how to have a relationship with God, learning how to have a relationship with ourselves and with others. And I think that sometimes in our instant gratification world, we've done a poor job of teaching people and ourselves how to deeply connect with God's self and others, how to commune with God, to find holiness in those sacred moments. Because too often we go right into, did you like it? Were you entertained? Did you have fun? Instead, maybe we should begin focusing on, did I find something beyond and greater than myself that I connected with? Was I able to tap into something deeper in those moments? When we worship God and we make time for prayer and meditation, we spend time in the fellowship of AA and NA, we spend time in the fellowship of our friends and family, we engage something beyond ourselves. And the most fulfilled people I know, that's what they're like. They engage the world around them, and they let go of being self-absorbed. Dr. Albert Schweitzer conceptualized the community which he called the fellowship of those who bear the mark of pain. Its members, he believed, were those who have learned by experience what physical pain and bodily anguish mean. These people all over the world are united in a secret bond. He writes that the one who has been delivered from pain must not think that he is now free, at liberty to continue life and forget the sickness. He is the one whose eyes are opened. He now has a duty to help others in their battles. He must help to bring to others the deliverance which he himself knows. So Dr. Schweitzer called it the fellowship of those who bear the mark of pain and anguish, and you and I call it the 12 steps and the fellowship of AA and NA. Those who live the most creative and inspired lives are somehow able to look beyond evidence, beyond data, and see the reality of God's goodness and grace. and they live lives of great hope. I read a story this week about when Chet Atkins, extraordinary musician, when he died, that he was eulogized by his good friend Garrison Keillor. And in that eulogy, Garrison Keillor recounts his long life and his list of accomplishments and says that when he was 50, he had what he called a stroke of good luck. He got colon cancer, and he thought he was going to die. When he didn't, he found a whole new life. He walked away from the corporate music world and fell in love with the guitar again and went all over playing, performing by his own schedule, performing by his own clock, so that he had time to sit and talk with people, to pick music with them, and have more fun. Some people can find the gratitude and grace in colon cancer, and others just see it as sickness. And it's the same thing in addiction. In recovery, people can find the gratitude and grace of their lives in recovery, while others just get stuck in seeing the sickness. There is within the people of faith an assurance that the things of God, regardless of circumstance, will get done. And that assurance is what we call hope. It sees us through long nights and long days, through trials and troubles. It encourages us to wait, to watch, and to anticipate. And it assures us that God is not finished with us yet. Quality of life really isn't in the things that we collect or amass, but it's in our connection to the God of our understanding. It's in our connection with each other. And it's in our connection to ourselves. And it's always in the assurance that God is still creating in our lives. Those good things of God, they are never, never finished. Amen.